Welcome to the Web Platform Podcast, episode 85, Google Developer Experts and Developer Relations Show. On our panel today, we have Danny Blue.
Hey, everybody.
Justin Ribeiro.
Hello, wonderful people.
And myself, Eric Isaacson. And our guests today are Elizabeth Padilla.
Hi, everybody.
Gloria Bueno.
Yeah, nice. Hi.
And Martin Olmander, correct? Or Olmander?
Thanks for having me.
Can you guys just quickly introduce yourselves and tell us a little about yourselves? Starting with Liz.
With Liz?
With Liz, sorry.
Yes. Hi, I'm a program manager that works in Google Developer Relations, and some of the work that I've been doing has been with the North America community, specifically working with Google Developer Groups and Google Developer Experts, and helping developers who are not working at Google have access to Google tools and also the ability to give us feedback.
Martin?
Yeah, everything Liz said holds true for me as well. Very easy. So I'm program manager at Google as well, and I work with developer communities in North America.
And Gloria?
Well, I'm a newly GDE Google Developer Expert in Polymer, web technologies. I'm currently working as a front-end developer for MassMe TV, so and working in Polymer very hard in our new tool. So.
Never heard of it. It's a brand new technology to me today.
Shadow what?
Polymer? Shadow DOM? No, we never had an argument about that on the show. Never.
Never.
Perfectly agreed upon.
So as you can see, everybody here is aligned with Google in some way. We have 4 GDEs now here and 2 program managers at Google. So we're a little lopsided on the Google side here for this one, but we wanted to really talk about, the Google Developer Experts program because I've had a lot of great experiences, mostly thanks to the people here on this podcast, but also to everyone else involved. Justin's been around forever and does like 5 GDE things every day, if not 10. So
Common myths.
Yeah, the man, the myth, the legend. But we have 2 new Google Developer Experts, fairly new. Both on, all of us are kind of web technologies, the 4 of us. But Gloria and Danny, I'm really interested to figure out what's been your experience. But before we get into that, I do want to kind of clarify what the Google Developer Experts program is, and I will hand that off to the experts at describing that, which would be Martin and Liz. Can you guys tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. So Google Developer Experts, these are folks who do not work for Google. They're not Google employees, and but they know a Google developer product really well. So, for example, Android, or like Gloria here knows about web development. And these are folks who are already, like Gloria, speaking at events or releasing open source software or writing books or blog posts about these technologies. And the GDE program, the Google Developer Expert program, is a way for Google to recognize and support and encourage these folks to do even more. So let's see, what am I missing, Liz?
Yeah, well, you covered a lot of it, but I just want to build on that.
Yeah, please do.
Google Developer Experts are people who are very passionate and good with technology. They're already really busy before they became experts. They are in the conferences and the blog posts. They are just like really ahead of the advocacy with technology. And we happen to be fortunate enough in Google to capture them and say, come over here, let's cast a net, and work with us. And then they're able to really help us reach further, right? Because there's only so many Google offices, there's only so many Google, developer advocates, and we understand and acknowledge the fact that there's a lot of really, really great technical people out there who also want to speak about Google technologies. And so they become something like an ambassador of Google. And it's awesome, and it's great because we are able to reach so much further because of them.
And there is sort of this notion that developer advocacy can be sort of, you know, cheerleadery and salesy and whatnot, but really that's not what developer advocacy is about. Because when we talk about sort of developer experts in Google's sense, or you look at other developer sort of advocacy programs across the board in terms of the industry, it's really not about pushing the sale. It's about the technology itself. Correct?
Yeah. Well, sorry, Martin. I was going to say, I think we should define what advocacy and developer relations is versus marketing and sales in order to really help our audience understand what we do. We just attended DevRailCon, which was an awesome meeting about a conference about just developer relations. And one of the talking points they had that really stuck with me was that marketing is pushing and developer relations is pulling. Right? That's the difference. Developer relations and advocacy is building community. It's trying to share knowledge, not features. And that's the difference, where if you are selling features and you're selling APIs and you're pushing, then you're doing a sales and marketing job.
Right. And also, if you're a developer advocate, you advocate a product to developers. That is half of your job. The other half of your job, as we see it, is you advocate for developers into Google, so that it's a two-way street. That's the way we like to think about it. And then, of course, Google developer experts become very important because we can't talk to all, you know, millions and millions of developers, but we can talk to, you know, 50 or 60 or 70 Google developer experts in North America.
And in terms of, you know, sort of the reach that you sort of speak about, you know, here in North America, you know, we have 75-ish sort of developer experts that sort of have gone through the process initially. You know, worldwide, you know, the program seems to be continuously expanding as not just the, I like to think of it as not so much based on the product range, but also because technology itself has become sort of more deeply ingrained. Because developer advocacy is really not a new thing, right? I think a lot of people see it now who are coming into the industry as, oh, this is a thing that's happened. But I mean, I look back at the people I came up with in the business, you know, and they would, you know, tell stories about in the 70s how IBM would come and tell them, please come and work on this cool new thing that we've got, and here's the thing that it does. And they started to develop those sort of developer communities. And even my mother in the 80s would talk about how companies would come back and forth into the office as developer advocates before they were called developer advocates. So it's not necessarily a new thing, but it has sort of evolved over time.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. It's been going on for a long time. And Guy Kawasaki, he wrote the Bible on developer advocacy. It was called Selling the Dream, and I think it was published in '91. And he was they didn't call it back then, but in the 80s, a developer advocate at Apple. So what I think is changing is that now with GitHub and podcasts and everything like that, is becoming much more collaborative and much more of a two-way street than it was.
And that's one of the things I really loved coming onto the program was it's not, you would think a lot of people have this perception, like you said, Justin, of the advocacy is like you're trying to almost be a salesperson for developers, right? You're like, and I guess there's a misunderstanding there where you're just really excited about it. And Google developers that I've met at I/O last year and online, it's just we're all excited to be working with each other and working on different technologies. Like there's no reason we can't collaborate on a Microsoft open source project. There's no reason we can't do React and these other things. It's not all about just let's Googleify everything. It's about let's make the web better, and that's one of the things I loved about the web technologies, at least GDE.
Well, and to Liz's point, right? It's about passion, and I think with any program that lacks passion, you quickly see sort of what happens with it. You have this major knowledge drain across the board, whether it's web technologies or something else. It really doesn't matter the platform. If you sort of look at historically in the last few years, there have been missteps in sort of developer advocacy, where developer sort of relations for certain organizations have sort of gone awry. You look at sort of like what happened with Twitter, right? Twitter kind of made a misstep. Hey, developers, here's a whole bunch of features. Build, build, build. Oh, by the way, we're going to take away all your APIs. And that didn't work so well for them, right? They sort of had this knowledge drain across the board, and even they would, last year they came out and said, hey, we kind of made a mistake. We should probably try to reset some things there. So you can't. It definitely is that notion of pull, right? It can't just be, hey, here's all this stuff. Oh, now we're going to take it away. You have to understand sort of that passion within your group, and you have to foster passion. Otherwise, it doesn't really work, does it?
And I think just to build on that, Justin, it's not just about passion, but it's about building a reciprocal community, meaning that as a company, you're coming in, and you're asking external developers to help you, share the technology, also debug the technology, train, right? So you're building this ecosystem in which everybody has a part that they're playing, and they're happy to be there. So you cannot have just one person pull or one company pull without the discussion of the community, which is the difference between sales and community. And that's what I really wanted to make the point to. In a community, everybody's a stakeholder, everybody has a say, and it's hard, and that's the reason why it's so difficult to manage a community. There's so many voices, right? In a place where you're just selling, then there's arbitrary decisions that are made, and that pulls resources without really considering how it's going to affect the ecosystem. So it's passion and community.
Well, and we don't know anything about community when it comes to the web, right? I mean, there's a battle on a mail list every day, in terms of everyone's sort of vision of what the platform should be, whether, it's the lower level extensible nature of it or whatnot. So community is, communities can be quite widespread in terms of the opinions held within, but you still have to foster that thing, because without that, you don't get any growth, really. So I've talked way too much at this point. This is the time where Justin be quiet during the podcast times. And maybe we should ask our two new GDEs how they're doing, Eric. What do you think?
I think it's a brilliant idea.
Fantastic. Let's do that. Hey, Danny and Gloria, how's being a GDE treating you these days?
Gloria can go first.
Ladies first, right?
Okay. I should say the last month and a half has been crazy, more on the line that Liz was talking about. It's all about community, and I was part of the community and doing things, but then the community, you have the ability, what a GDE gives to you is that the community opens to you. So suddenly you have a bunch of opportunities to go and share what you are doing in your technology, and then it's something curious happens, because we're working a lot with the technology. We're really working with the insights of the technology. So as we said before, like who hasn't heard about Polymer or anything like that? But then, for example, the last month I've been touring around Spain for many cities, speaking in the Woman Tech Maker, especially in Woman Tech Maker events, and it's been such a surprise when a lot of people like, what? Why is Polymer? I can do that actually. It's possible, and how can I do that? And then they ask, oh, I want to know more, and then there is when something clicks. And there, when the people really want to be able to be better with the technology, that they want to get involved in the community, and then they start to ask you, how can I contact you? What can I do? What other events there are that I can get involved? And this is really great feedback I have in there for being a GDE. I don't know about you, Danny.
My answer will be much less elegant. But so largely, I would say I have never had imposter syndrome quite as much as I do now. I do think just getting you're just talking about resources, just having access to. So one, it's awesome because it kind of gives us a better platform for interacting with the community that we were already a part of. But then it's also a little bit easier for us to have access to other just really, really smart people in the GDE community, so that you can ask like little questions here and there about specifically how something works, and if somebody doesn't know the answer, they know somebody they can point you to that does. So I mean, so far for me, it's been mostly me trying to settle into it, just being on mailing lists with where it's like there's something from Adi Osmani in my inbox. That's
totally.
weird,
Yeah.
right? It's
totally agree.
Yeah, so my level of my imposter syndrome level, I think, is now coming back down to a healthy level. But so far it's been crazy, but it's been great, and it's also kind of kickstarted me a little bit as well. Like now that especially now that I'm in, I kind of have that thing where well, now I need to show I belong. So I'm even ramping up some more of my open source stuff, and I'm start working on just today I had an idea for a new talk that I'm starting to outline that I'm going to try to start giving on web workers, which is just random, but being, and I thought about it for a while, but now being in the community, now being in this position, it's not necessarily that I have to, because I would have done it anyway, but now it's just that little bit more to show okay, I do want to show I do want to share the things that I know, and I have a platform to do it, so let's just do it.
So you both have been recently sort of in the GDE program. How does one sort of become a Google Developer Expert? Because there is a lot of sort of, there is some information on the website, which we'll put a link in the show notes to for those interested in the program as a whole. But what's the process look like? What is Google looking for in developer experts?
I remember a lot of push-ups. I don't know about you.
There was it was pretty much
failed.
Yeah, it was like the physical
Took me a
fitness
while.
test in high school. If anybody, you guys remember that? Remember how terrible that was? No, it was nothing like that. Yes, very 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 similar to Jedi training. So I'm gonna say that I don't even not that I don't know. Eric kind of sponsored me, I guess, if you will, to be a GDE, or at least said hey, he might be okay at it. But and then you go through a set of interviews. But it seems that a lot of the stuff that they are looking for is for people that are involved in the community and that do know what they're talking about. I'm a GDE in the web technologies, so I do this podcast, which I like. I've given talks about it. I've done open source things. So those seem to be specifically the areas that the program seems to be interested in. I mean, they let me in, so I'm assuming I'm doing something at least vaguely in the right direction.
Yeah, you said before, it's not doing something new. I mean, it's continue doing what you were doing, but with more support and also more opportunities. But I'm not doing anything different, but a lot, much more. But I think keeps doing the same things.
Yeah, this is Liz, for those of you who are listening to us on the podcast. What we're really asking for when we look at GDEs is for at least 2 years of community work. What that means is that whatever way you think you're going to contribute, so if some people are not going to give talks, they just don't like to give talks, but they will build blogs, they will participate in open source, they will do other really cool stuff, and that's okay. The GDEs come in all flavors. But what we want to see in your experience is that you have already been doing those things for at least 2 years, on top of being a really good person in your expertise. If you have that combination, then you're definitely a GDE, and I'm just going to plug the program right now and say, please give us a shout out, because we want to see you and we want to help you get into the community in North America.
Yeah, to tag on to what Danny said, I didn't actually sponsor you, Danny. It's more like I said I nominated you. I just threw your name in and said, hey, take a look at this guy. And then you went through the interviews and you did the hard work of showing off your portfolio. And I know Gloria had to probably do a similar process. And it's, it's not. I mean, people have asked me too. I've had a lot of people who are in the process now, going through it, who are really, in my opinion, just really awesome at what they do, and they're like, so how long does it take, and and what do I need to do to make sure that I get interviewed quicker, and my answer to that is like, well, you have to understand that developer relations people and people who run the GDE program, they're constantly, like especially around now, like Google I/O is right around the corner, and that's the biggest event for Google. And so for those of you listening out there who are applying for GDEs, wondering what's happening, everyone's very busy trying to get through like their stuff for I/O, and then a couple weeks after, when things settle down, I'm sure you're going to get something back and say, hey, by the way, we remember you and we're going to set you up now.
Well, I can talk a little bit about the pipelines and maybe demystify what's going on. I've seen it, first of all, firsthand. So things to keep in mind is that, one, we have to have a GDE interview, the potential GDE. So trying to liaison that with a community of volunteers always takes a little bit of time. Not to mention that we have only 2 to 3 volunteers per section as Googlers. So there's like 3 Android Google developers who are able to interview GDEs globally, which means that just getting the time to schedule them always takes a little bit. We understand that the pipeline's a little bit long sometimes, but we try to keep it down to a month. So you should hear an answer within a month. If you don't have the community experience, you probably will hear within 2 weeks, because the GDEs will be able to point to that. They're excellent at saying, this person needs a little 6 more months or a year, etc. So there's the magic behind the pipeline.
And that happens all the time, right? That somebody is great technologically but hasn't worked very much in the community, and then we give them that feedback, or usually the other GDEs interviewing them give that feedback, and then we say, hey, come back in 6 months or a year and show us what you've done by then. And often it works out, and they get in the program the second try.
Well, it is an interesting sort of notion, because being a developer advocate or a developer expert is not necessarily the same thing as being an engineer, right? I mean, a lot of people who come into it and say, well, I am a very good engineer, and I have really good skills in this XYZ thing, whether it be a language or a platform or whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, you also have to learn to communicate that thing, which some people are very good at, and some people are not very good at it. It doesn't matter really which side you're on. Everyone has core strengths that they should play to that sort of allows them to do the things that they want to do. And there's always room for improvement. For instance, Justin's pronunciation of names, highly something that should be improved on a daily basis. But at the end of the day, you do have to have sort of a interesting sort of set of skills beyond just simply saying, I'm a very good engineer at X. You sort of need to be able to do that thing where you've published something or whatever. You've become trusted within your community itself, right? Because simply shouting to the heavens does not necessarily make you like the end-all, be-all resource that people are going to turn to when they have questions.
Sometimes.
So, as a GDE, like what, after you've become this mystical GDE of things, what sort of things do you have to do differently? Because it's a brand new title and it looks really shiny on a card. But at the end of the day, there are probably some things that both are things you have to do and things the program does for you. What are some of those things?
Yeah. So the things we see GDEs do most commonly is speak at conferences or at meetups. We see GDEs write tech books. I just saw the other day Bruce McPherson, his book Going GAS about Google Apps Script came out. Very exciting. And write blog posts and release open source software. So those are the main areas we see GDEs are busy with. And then with the obligations, what we like to see is GDEs log their activities on social media, so we see who's doing what, and we can talk about it, and we can follow up. And then if you do that, then you get benefits like sneak previews of upcoming products, develop invitations to Google conferences like Google I/O that was mentioned here, and other conferences that happen during the year. And sometimes we also subsidize travel for GDEs to speak at specific strategic conferences.
And sort of a lot of people ask about the logging, or at least they ask me about the logging. Oh, I have to log my events? Why would I possibly have to do that? And there is some notion, tracking any sort of developer advocacy program is very difficult in terms of what kind of impact it has for sort of the output of not only corporations but individuals, right? Because it is a two-way street. We've sort of discussed it here today about this idea that not only should you have that passion around your community that you're in, but there is also some reciprocation against that. You may enjoy it, which I would really hope you were doing if you were going out giving talks randomly around town. But there is, beyond sort of those sneak peeks and things, you do get quite a bit of access in terms of, talking to product teams. I know Danny just mentioned, he got an email from Addy on one of the mailing lists, which is pretty awesome when that just randomly shows up in your box and you're talking about the wonders of the web.
It's insane. It is absolutely insane.
Especially when you've been following that developer for most of their career, whoa, they've been doing this and that, and now they're working over at Google, and it's pretty surreal.
It's totally crazy.
So why is it important? What we like to tell GDEs is that if they logged a tree in the forest, but they didn't log it in, did it fall? No, my friends, it didn't. Okay? As your regional leads, as the people who are saying out there, look at the value GDEs are bringing, and we can't show sometimes your work because we didn't record it, because it's not there. We know, the people who are working with you, we're meeting with you monthly. We know the product teams that are working with you. We're getting great reviews, but yet we can't show anything for it. It makes it really hard for us to be able to go out there and advocate within our own ecosystem for resources, right? Because we are trying to always bring new things to GDE. So let's make sure that they have tickets to I/O or access to conferences or an access for a travel budget. But none of these things can happen if we didn't log the tree that you logged. So help us help you.
Well, and I think that's a very real thing for a lot of advocacy programs. I think you do have to have some metric that says, hey, people are actually doing the things that I need, whether it's internally or not. I think a lot of times when you look at sort of community projects, whether they're open source or not, you end up with this, you end up with very sort of active sort of individuals who sort of drive projects forward. And in communities, you're always going to have leaders within that community. And I like to think of it as, for those of you who, are out there sort of doing those things in the community, it's second nature to some extent, right? You're already really sort of have this mental tracking log of, I am doing these things, because otherwise you would not be terribly organized and you probably wouldn't be doing anything, because you'd end up in, in a freeze state of what should I do now? So I don't think it's outside the norm to request that sort of thing for those. And not to mention, it's very simple. It's a web form, people. We love web forms. This is the Web Platform Podcast. Shameless plug for the podcast we're literally giving right now.
We talk about web tech here? What do you mean?
Only once in a while.
That was an Inception plug.
Somebody spin the dreidel.
So, what's next for the GDE program? I mean, you have a lot of product areas, correct? There's a huge amount of different areas in terms of what, sort of Google traverses. I mean, web technologies is a very big target platform in and of itself, and you have a lot more than that, correct?
Yeah. So the areas are web technologies and Android, a lot of Android folks, Maps API, Google Apps and Drive. So there's AppScript and that sort of thing there. Internet of Things. I think we have an Internet of Things GD here on the podcast with us. Do we, Justin?
I think we do, yes. Because I was one of the ones in that first group.
Yeah, you were the very first one.
Haven't you been like every GDE, Justin?
That depends on who you ask and how many interviews I've actually done. So, but yes, indeed, I've gone through a few, just a few.
Yeah.
Well, I did speak at I/O last year too on Polymer things, and Firebase things. So
and Firebase, yeah. Which is a great talk.
It was.
Oh, thank you. You're also sweet.
And then there's wearables as well.
Let's not forget the non-technology experts who are UI UX in business. So we have different branches.
Yeah, we have exactly. We have other Google experts. They're not Google developer experts, but they're experts in marketing and branding and things like that, and help startups. But in terms of what's next, we're seeing we're getting critical mass. So we now have around 75 GDs in North America and about 400 worldwide. So now all of a sudden it becomes more interesting to do things together. And this is sort of an inflection point, I think, in the community, because now, before it was just a light sprinkling, dusting over the world of GDs, but now that there actually are a few in every location, GDs can work together, and we're seeing some of that. So, for example, Mike Wolfson, he is arranging a meetup of Android GDs at Google I/O, and we see other things where GDs can work together, and we'd like to help that along by, in North America, we're going to have GD ambassadors. So these are the more community-minded GDs who, like Mike, who set up events and bring GDs together to do great things together. And then if you're more into just the technology and don't care so much about the community, then you keep doing what you're doing as a GD, but you will have better access to us at Google through these ambassadors. So we're trying to build that community where GDs do cool things together. Indeed, like you guys are doing right now.
Yeah, we're trying to surface the leaders and then give them power, like real power, to make a difference within the program.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's a lot of activity in the program. I mean, it should be noted that there is quite a, just in terms of 75. I mean, 75 GDEs in North America may not seem like very much, but there's a massive amount of activity that GDEs do, be it in source code releases or code labs or talks or books or articles. We're somewhat lucky on this phone call, or podcast. Maybe Justin had one too many phone calls this morning, where there is quite a bit of, we see that activity on a daily basis, and so much of it is, very, very public, right? As particularly on the web side and on the Android side, where there's just tons and tons of information being pumped up, where developers are helping developers just build better stuff.
Yeah, I see it in the Angular side and the Polymer side, and at I/O I saw so much Android goodness. There is a lot of great things coming out of the GDs in Android at I/O. I remember, and beyond that, but like even just seeing like on Twitter and on Google Plus, you could see the posts that are coming out just in those areas alone is just mind-boggling.
And so we expect a lot of posts from Danny and Gloria now as the new GDEs. We just, 3 or 4 a week. Just if you just can crank those things out, so let's just get them done. Just a little.
We are cooking them.
Yeah, it's don't worry. It's just don't worry about it. It'll all be fine. I'm sure.
Sure.
Yeah, Eric and I are going to go on vacation, and when we get back, be just a few.
Yeah, you need to see your children every once in a while, Justin. So.
They sometimes forget my face, but that's okay because it's. I mean, you can't see me because you're probably not watching me at the moment. But this is, it's a face only my children love at this point. I think. So what else do we?
Don't be too hard on yourself.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. See, everyone's being nice to Justin today because Justin's stumbling around. But the reality is that advocacy as a whole is sort of continuing to grow in terms of sort of Google's sphere, in terms of developer experts and sort of the programs that Google has within it. On the web technology side, I know that there's been a huge expansion in terms of sort of the folks that are coming into the program. There's been a lot of expansion in the last year alone. I mean, even 2 years ago when I sort of showed up, there was only 100-ish. And now we've grown quite exponentially as experts identify experts and Googlers identify experts. Where does DevRel go from here? Like, a lot of times DevRel can sort of stall out. You see programs that have these high peaks where they don't evolve. Is developer advocacy sort of continuing evolving at Google in terms of programs like developer experts and whatnot?
Yeah, I guess so the next big thing is this building a community of Google developer experts, and so that they can do things, cool things together. And I think also what we are doubling down on is community. So like Liz was mentioning, we recently went to DevRelCon, which was a conference for developer relations folks, and it was pretty clear there that there are two types. Companies see developer relations through one of two prisms, and one is they see DevRel as sales and generating leads, and there were some talks about that. How much do you put into your developer relations budget, and how many leads do you get out, and what's the average lifetime cost of a customer, and things like that. Then there's the other part. That the other way of looking at it is that developer relations, it's all about creating community. And we are firmly in that camp, right? So we want to build a community of Google developer experts. We have already the community of Google developer groups. And what's interesting with this is that I hear more and more, even from teams within Google and even salespeople, they're saying like this community thing, this is they're noticing that companies are picking products and technologies based on where the community is. Because if you pick a technology that there isn't a community around, that means A, when you get stuck, you only have the vendor to talk to, you don't have a community to talk to. And B, it makes it really hard to hire people who know that technology that you're using. So we're doubling down on community, and more community for Google developer experts, and do more things together, and not count sales leads.
Well, and there's a lot of, with community comes sort of diversity of that community, and there's been sort of, I know, a push from a lot of DevRel folks at Google and other sort of companies about sort of diversifying their ranks in terms of minorities, in terms of women, in terms of those sorts of things that not only allow you more reach into sort of communities that haven't been tapped, but also just in diversity driving creativity in those sort of regions. Google seems fairly committed to this notion. I mean, there's been a lot of changes even on the GDE side where more people are coming on from a much more diverse set of communities. Is diversity top of mind at Google in terms of the sort of community idea?
I will answer that one, Martin. I think that, yes, Google is really focused and committed to having a diverse space that's also inclusive, right? We want to make sure that from attendees to speakers, leaders, organizers, and experts, we have a good representation. Because, yes, there's creativity, because it also means that we are actually being really open to other folks and that we are doing the right things to make sure that people are getting the signals that this is a safe space for everyone and you should join. And we're really active in working with how do we train organizers to have better, what is their marketing looking like? How are they talking about the community? Who are they reaching out to? How are you actually approaching diversity and inclusion?
And it can be a very difficult thing. I mean, I don't think we necessarily have all the answers across the board, and this goes just in the, I know this is sort of a touchy point in communities of things because, you know, how do you reach disenfranchised groups? How do you deal with that inclusion that can be very, very difficult to sort of foster in certain locations? It's a very hard problem, but it is a problem that is being worked.
Yes, and I think one of the things that I hear the most when we speak of diversity and inclusion is, wait, does this mean I have to go and find, you know, all the things to come into my meetup in order to be fully diverse? And really what it is that we would like for our groups to ideally have 3 focuses, right? So if you're a Google developer group and you're doing Android, that's awesome. You should have Android folks from all the ranks. If you also want to do Women Tech Makers, which is the brand that we use for women in technology, that's fantastic. Then also that's your second focus. And the third could be another technology as well, or you might want to do 1/3 of your events are for a different sector. We're not saying go and find all the things. What we're saying is, like, if you build a program and you want it to be like a Women Tech Maker focus plus a Android focus, make sure that you're reaching out to far in that reach. It is not your job to go and try to find one person per, of the different level or age or abilities. It's just, what are we doing to make sure that if a person does come into your meetup or to a talk you're giving, they're feeling included? And just to give you a perfect example, one of the things that happens a lot in technology is you have a speaker, for example, for GDEs. And this is not a GDE example, but they'll make a example out of a woman not being put in a place that looks good. That's not welcoming to a woman, right? So how are you putting yourself out there? What is the content you're putting out there, and is that inclusive and just like approachable by other groups?
And I think that's actually one of the cool sort of perks, or at least I've had sort of in the GDE program, is that you get some really cool training at things like the Developer Expert Summit on understanding how your messaging affects others, and sort of reaching those people in the back of the room who don't necessarily feel included in a lot of sort of activities that they should be included in, that they are part of that thing that you are trying to either teach or do, or the thing that they're already doing. And I know that on the web tech side, our community is obviously huge. It is the web, and there's a good debate any particular day of the week on technologies or random ideology about how this thing should be done. But at the end of the day, if you have an inclusive sort of community that can sort of build on that, you get better features out of it. You get more included people who do great things. And I think that's a very sort of powerful approach to things and such.
You mean we have opinions on this stuff?
I have no opinions. No, they're just words that flow freely through a microphone onto the webs.
No, it's true though. We do have a lot of diversity, which is great. A lot of choices in the web.
Yeah, and diversity, just to say this, because people typically think of ethnic background and gender, but diversity also means, like, what is your level, right? Are you a new person to Android, and are you coming to an Android meetup and you're not feeling welcome because the material is not approachable, because it's not accessible, because they haven't built those opportunities? And in that case, maybe the meetup should say this is for advanced developers for Android. So it's tweak your messaging so people don't come in there and don't feel included, or create curriculum that's going to be able to help those folks get into the platform.
And that's such a difficult thing to do as a speaker who gives a lot of talks, is understanding the level within the room. Doesn't really matter what platform you're on, trying to suss that out, whether talking to organizers or conference folks or whoever, is a very hard thing to do. And to be honest with you, I wish there was just a better way to do it, but I know there isn't. And as people who have come to my talks may know, I will poll you afterwards. Out of curiosity, was that within your reach? Because you don't want to overshoot and you don't want to undershoot. Otherwise, no one feels like they had a takeaway. And that, to me, is like, that pains me as a speaker.
Well, as a speaker and a trainer, it's really important that we get that feedback and understand how we can better serve the community. Absolutely.
Yeah, because just being... No, excuse me, my microphone went crazy. But that's one thing, especially coming in, people that are just following up on what Justin said. If you go to a talk that is so far over your head, you don't get anything out of it, and a lot of times that will frustrate people as well. Especially if you are you're really starting to get involved in the community. You're really starting to get involved just in whatever technology or platform at the given time, and you feel like you are so far away from the target. It can be very, very frustrating and be very difficult to get that drive to like, okay, well, how do I get there, because this road seems so long. My one bit of advice for people that, because like Justin said, it's very hard to tailor things so that everybody gets exactly what they need out of it. But so my suggestion, or just my recommendation, is try not to be frustrated, because everybody, including the person probably giving the talk, is probably going to go home and read some blog post that shoots way over his or her head as well. So it's not like you get to some point and then you're like, okay, now I understand everything. It's always going to be like that, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just there's always going to be stuff to learn. But then also at the same time, if you are somebody that maybe has more experience in a specific technology or area, whether or not you're a speaker or just somebody else viewing something, try not to make somebody feel bad for not knowing something, because all that means is you have something that you can teach them. So and that's, I think, part of the other community that can be, and that stuff can show up in very small communities as well. Just while we're talking about things like that, that can show up in the workplace. It can show up at meetups. It can show up at there are personalities out there in the communities, and everybody's trying to work together. So everybody wants to get better, and everybody wants to move the platform together as a whole. So a little bit off topic, but I think related.
So one last thing too, like if somebody's out there and they're like, I do blog posts, or I speak here, or I do all three, or all three. Geez. So I do a whole bunch of different things, basically, is what I'm saying. And this might be a good fit for me. How do people start to get involved?
I will say, like, in relation with the meetup, that you go to the meetup, that don't be afraid to ask. For example, if you go to a meetup and then maybe you were expecting more level of the meetup, but the audience was just introducing to the technology, or maybe you feel frustrated, I want to know more, and okay, but you have the contacts, you have the people, you can mail GDE or mail people in the community and try to get more involved with the people. I mean, not only producing code, blog post or anything like that, but also with the people. Try to get more engaged with the community, and then you can have the next level. I mean, like if you want to become a GDE, or already I'm doing a lot of things, but then you have to find your way, your position on the community also.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Gloria. And if this is something, if becoming a GDE is something you want to aspire to, then talk with the GDEs that are already out there. Now that there are 400 of them, it's a little easier to find a meetup, or you go to Google developers.google.com/experts. You can see the list of them there. Go to an event where there's one, or contact one online, and learn more about the program, and maybe you will learn more what you need to do, or they can nominate you as a Google Developer Expert.
Fantastic. Well, we're running up against time, ladies and gentlemen, which means it's now time for the magical plug who, where, and where you are on the Internet of Things. Where can the lovely people of the Web Platform Podcast listener group find you out there? No one jump all at once. It's okay. Liz, how about you? Where can people contact you if they want to talk to you online?
Sure. My handle at Twitter is @justepadilla. Make sure to send me a line there, and I would be happy to answer any questions you have.
Martin, how about you?
I'm on Twitter. I'm at Martin Omander as one word.
Gloria, how about yourself?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. I'm at globebits with 2 S at the end. Yeah, you can direct me anytime.
And we will put all these handles in the show notes so that you can contact these wonderful people and ask them lots of awesome questions. Eric, Danny, do we have anything else that we should cover before we wrap this thing up?
Justin, I do not think so.
I just want to say thank you to our guests. It's been a pleasure working with you guys and to have you on the podcast here. It's been great.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for inviting us. This was fun.
Thank you for it. It's been great. Thank you.
Yes, and great to meet you, virtually in person, Gloria.
Yeah, totally. Nice to meet you too. Hope to meet you in person soon.
Definitely.
Danny, why don't you take us home today?
What? All right. So, I know we're real good at this stuff, right? It's like we've been doing it for a little bit. So this has been, I don't even remember what
85. We're on 85.
85. So this has been the Web Platform Podcast, episode number 85, with our GDE roundtable discussion, for lack of a better term. I haven't been paying attention. I don't know what's happening.
Well, that's typical.
but really, we want to thank all of our guests, and we want to thank everybody for listening this week. And to look out, we will be putting this up on iTunes very soon. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.